So, having said that, when we created this test, as we do with every ASE test, we bring together a very diverse group of subject matter experts. I'm going to refer to them as SMEs. They were assembled during all the test development workshops that we facilitated to create all the test content for this new test. We had the original equipment manufacturers participating from General Motors, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Ford, and Chrysler, just to name a few. The groups of the OEM representatives were balanced out with SMEs from both the independent and dealership shops as well. All of the SMEs, I want to say, were highly experienced hybrid vehicle specialists, and many of them had extensive experience working on different brands of hybrid vehicles. This diversity of knowledge and experience really helped to ensure that the technology from the majority of hybrid vehicle market was going to be represented during program development. That's the key, because we want all facets of the hybrid market to be represented so that all those considerations can be brought into the mix when we're discussing test content. So let's talk a little bit about the program plan. It was determined early on in our workshop process that since the various manufacturers' hybrid platforms differ, if we used a hybrid composite vehicle, it would likely have to take the shape of hybrid technology from a single manufacturer. If for those that are familiar with the advanced level tests, L1 and L2, a little less challenging because so much of the powertrains from the automobiles, as far as the OBD systems, are very generic. With multi-port fuel injection and potentiometers that all work the same way. So there was more of a platform there. This would have to take a single manufacturer's look. So one of the initial challenges we overcame in the workshops was finding a way to develop an advanced level test that would encompass generic hybrid vehicle technology without the use of a composite vehicle. It was really the service and repairs industry's goal in approaching ASE to develop this test to offer a test that would benefit all hybrid technicians regardless of their vehicle specialty. So how did we accomplish that? Well, in order to maintain a generic continuity between the various manufacturers' hybrid vehicle types, the SMEs focused on inclusion of prevalent technology that makes hybrid vehicles the same, which are the high voltage and the supporting systems. So our SMEs collectively concluded that the system voltages across the various manufacturers can vary, but the principles of their application and the diagnostic and safety procedures are essentially similar. So using this as the defining criteria, the skills necessary for competent job performance of technicians diagnosing and repairing hybrid vehicles was really the basis for creation and refinement of the task list, which we'll talk about more in detail a little bit later, which is the set of job skills that foundations of this test, and as well as all the other test program development activities such as question writing and all those other things that we need to have to make an ASE certification test. One of the things I want to point out, it's important to note that the technical content included in this test will cover multiple manufacturers' hybrid electric vehicle platforms. Okay? As a result, technicians who have only worked on hybrid vehicles produced by a single manufacturer will need to study up on hybrid vehicle technology used by other manufacturers. Now, there's already a precedent for this need and for technicians to familiarize themselves with various manufacturer technologies and other ASE certification tests. So, as with some other tests, we expect some technicians will have to get out of their comfort zone and study up on unfamiliar technology if they want to be successful in passing this test and earning the new ASE Light Duty Hybrid Electric Vehicle Specialist Advanced Level credential. Okay? So that's about all I want to get into as far as the background. I think I've kind of painted the picture of how we got to where we are, and let's focus on really the test content, which is really the meat of this presentation, and which I'm sure everybody's really here for tonight. Okay, so the generic concept presented many challenges as a result of the differences in manufacturer technology and terminology. So as a solution to this, we created a document that we call the Certification Test Reference to serve as a tool for technicians to help us overcome these challenges. In the document, we established an outline of the technology common to all the hybrid electric vehicles that we would cover in the test. We then developed definitions for all the vehicle platforms and included block diagrams that depict each of the major hybrid electric vehicle systems that will be considered in the test content. Now, I know I just said a big mouthful, but we're going to go through this piece by piece here in just a moment. One of the other things we also included in this document was a glossary of terms to serve as a reference, and it includes terms used in the test that may not be consistent across the various manufacturers. Now, I want to point out that this document, we used it during our test development process under the idea that this document is going to be available to technicians as an electronic pop-up reference during the test. So you're going to have it before the test to get familiar with it, to help you prepare for the test, and you're going to have it during the test in the event that you need to refer to it while you're answering questions. Let me show you how we did this. Give me just a minute to minimize this a little bit so we can see the majority of the screen here. Okay. The certification test reference document is really organized into 3 parts, and I'm going to go over each of them separately. This is kind of our, for lack of a better characterization, this is kind of the pseudo-composite vehicle for this exam, okay? Because this kind of establishes the precepts of the content that the test questions are going to reflect, okay? So it's organized in 3 parts. This first part, page 1, the information on this page really establishes the common technical constructs for the hybrid drive systems included in this test. Now, during question writing, our SMEs use these definitions to ensure that the test content remains consistent and is understandable to technicians regardless of their area of hybrid vehicle specialty. Remember, our SMEs were reviewing this, and a lot of them were looking at this from a lot of different angles. So hopefully we've done a really good job in developing this generic concept that's going to be understandable to technicians, regardless of where you're coming from. Let's review a few of these bullets just to get a kind of a flavor for what's included in this outline. Now, you'll see up here the certification test reference. This is page 1 of 3, and like I said, it's organized in 3 parts, and each part's on a page. So all motor generators are high voltage 3-phase AC electric motor generators, okay? That's a precept. All the content in our exam will be reflective of that technology, okay? Each system uses an AC-DC bidirectional inverter to provide AC current to and from the motor generators, okay? Again, another precept. I'm not going to read through all of these. This is a piece of preparation material that you can get more familiar with later, but I do want to point out a few unique situations that we encountered during program development that come into play here that this document's going to help you with. This bullet that I've just highlighted actually was the result of overcoming a challenge that we faced with the display of a hybrid system failure in a vehicle. For those of you that work on a bunch of different hybrids, and even for those of you that only work on one, there's many different ways the manufacturers display a hybrid system problem. Some put up, as we learned, some put up a message, some put up a light, there's all these different ways. So what ASE had to do, we had to find a generic way of representing the display of a hybrid system failure to the vehicle operator or to the technician through the vehicle warning system, okay? So what we've done is we've developed a generic characterization of how we're going to depict this in a test question, and what we're going to say is the vehicle displays a hybrid system warning on the instrument panel, okay? Whether it's a light, a message, it really doesn't matter, because in the ASE test world for the L3 test, it's a hybrid system warning, okay? You know there's a failure because we have a warning, okay? So that's kind of a really good example of one of the challenges that we had to attempt to overcome in developing this generic concept. Another one is something that we thought was really kind of simple, but we found it wasn't so simple. I want you to focus on the table down here at the bottom of this page. It was pretty interesting because all of a sudden we were writing these questions and we determined that all the manufacturers use a different term to indicate the vehicle's operational power mode. basically, for lack of a better way of characterizing it, the key position, okay? You know, what does it mean when the vehicle's ready or ready on? You know, there were all these different terminologies. So what we had to do, we had to develop a standard that we're going to use for indicating the vehicle's operational power mode in ASE test questions, and that's part of this reference document. So we have 4 operational power modes. We have off, where all the systems are off. We have accessory, which is the same as accessory in any conventional vehicle. Okay, we have power on. That's what you're going to see in a test question. A vehicle's in power on mode. Okay, and then it's depicting certain symptoms. This is equivalent to key on, engine off. Okay, but in this mode, it's important to know that's the engine will not run, nor will the vehicle move under electric power. Okay, so then finally, the ready to drive mode is equivalent to key on, engine running. So this is where the vehicle is ready to run under electric power, or the ICE is ready to start, the engine's running, or is off and ready to run if so commanded. So, and like I said, the electric drive system is also ready for a drive command. So ready to drive mode is just kind of what it states. It's the vehicle's ready to go. So this, you know, this first section really kind of outlines the precepts, again, of all the technical constructs of what will be reflected in the ASE test questions. Now the second part is a little more detailed, and I'm not going to read through each of these again separately, but I'm going to give you the concept on page 2 or 3 here of their test reference, okay? And what these block diagrams do is they serve as a visual reference to identify a classification for each of the vehicle platforms based on their technical characteristics, okay? We have 3 classifications that we're going to use, the type 1, the type 2, and you can just see type 3. I'm sure it's just peeking up at the bottom of your screen. I'll scroll up and then scroll back down a little bit. So we have, with these block diagrams, we have descriptions of how each of these type vehicles operate. So what we're able to do with these classifications, we will use these in some of the test questions to define a hybrid vehicle type in a diagnostic or repair scenario without actually calling out the name of the vehicle manufacturer. Okay, kind of a tricky way. We've gotten into ASE language here. Okay, but technicians familiar with hybrid technology should recognize, you know, some of these systems represented. I think if you read, you know, if you were to read through the description of type 1, you'd come to realize that, oh wow, you know, that applies to Toyota and to Ford, the Nissan Altima. Type 2 really applies to a Honda, Mercedes without 12 volt. BMW, Nissan Infiniti, and Type 3 really is the Chevy Bolt, okay? So what you're going to give you kind of an idea, you're going to see mostly generic-based test questions on the test, okay? Most of the questions are going to be generic, meaning the content will apply to any hybrid vehicle, okay? The diagnosis is the same. The voltage might be a little bit different, but the diagnosis is the same, all right? However, there will be some questions and a few sprinkling throughout the test that will only apply to a single type, which will be indicated in the test question. We'll use this type 1, type 2, type 3 nomenclature in a test. And let me give you an example. The question would read something like, the technician is diagnosing a motor generator failure on a type 2 hybrid vehicle. Okay? As anybody out there that's taken ASE test knows, you know, we have a consistent format for developing test questions, and I just read you a statement that, you know, could be the startup or the lead-in of a test question. But that's how we're going to reference the type 1, type 2, type 3, because there may be some individual scenarios, diagnostic scenarios, that we can address to a specific type that don't fit the generic mold that we're trying to have for the predominance of the content of this test. Again, like I said, the majority of the questions are going to be generic, but we will have a sprinkling of type 1, type 2, and type 3 specific questions throughout the test. And that's why it's important for everyone to have a certain level of understanding of the different technologies, particularly if you're a single manufacturer hybrid technician and you're not familiar with the other, you know, other vehicle types. The illustrations that, you know, these illustrations, the block diagrams, they really are going to help kind of level the playing field for technicians taking the L3 tests, you know, because as you know, the illustration, using the illustration with your knowledge of the subject matter is really your resource to solve the problem in a question and arrive at an answer, which is the diagnosis, right? So now, that's part 2. So part 3 of this document, which is on page 3 of 3, is a glossary of terms, okay? This glossary can be used as a reference during testing in the event you're taking the test and you encounter a term in a test question that you don't clearly understand due to the differences in how a term might be used by the various manufacturers. Now, I want to point out that we compiled these terms kind of on the fly during our question writing and review sessions, which is the best place because that's where we could best determine which terms should be included in this document. So I don't think we've left anything out. We've given you a good reference. Excuse me. We've given you a good reference to look at in case you run into some terminology that you're not familiar with. Just kind of an example here. We've identified an IGBT. We'll use that acronym throughout the test. Most of the time, it's going to be spelled out, but you'll find that to be an insulated gate bipolar transistor. So it's important also to note that this glossary, we've done our best to provide you the idea so that you can recognize what this term is without actually helping you to answer the question by using the information in this glossary. So a little bit of a double-edged sword there that we had to work with. But it's important to note we want to help level the playing field for all the technicians taking this test, and the certification test reference document is really that tool. Again, it's going to be available as a pop-up document in the computer-based testing user interface. It's also included in the official ASE L3 study guide, which I'll show you a little later, and we'll talk about how you can get a hold of that. So that's about what I have for the certification test reference document. Let's talk a little bit about test question content. We had, throughout our test question and test development sessions, we had pretty great success writing generic questions. We were a little skeptical starting off, but we had really good success. They apply to the majority of manufacturers' hybrid vehicles out there. Our SMEs kind of concluded, high voltage is high voltage, whether it's 156 volts or 300 volts. It's kind of all dangerous, and the diagnostic and safety procedures are essentially similar for all the manufacturers. So as I already said, there will be some type-specific questions included in the test, but the predominance of questions will be generic. Just remember that all of the test questions will require the application of high-level analysis skills for high-voltage systems, which is, it should be the case for any advanced level test. So let's take a moment and let's take a look at the test task list so you can get kind of an idea of the scope of content that we developed for this test. Now what you're looking at here is the test specification. This is standard for every ASE test. When anybody that's taken an ASE test out there, you always get your score report, and the score report is just reflective of this test specification. We give you the test is broken down into general content areas, and then we tell you how many questions you saw in the test in that content area and how many questions you answered correctly. And of course your cumulative score based on the pass score determines your pass-fail. So you'll see that we've developed 5 content areas for this test, 4 of which really are dealing with the high voltage components, the battery system, the drive systems, power electronics, and hybrid supporting systems. We'd be remiss if we didn't include the internal combustion engine. We've got tasks associated with that, and we'll take a peek at some of those. What I wanted to point out is that the L3 test will include 45 scored questions which are distributed across the content areas, and that's when the test goes fully operational. Now it's 45 scored questions, and we always have extra questions for research, usually about 10 questions for research. So when this test goes fully operational, it's going to be 55 questions at 2 hours of testing time. Now the pilot test, which we're going to talk about how we're going to deploy that in just a little bit, the pilot test is going to be delivered January 1st through February 28th of 2015. It will include 95 questions, and there's going to be 3.5 hours of testing time allowed for completion of the pilot test. Now, I just said the test is delivered January 1st to February 28th. It's actually going to be available through June, but I'm going to talk about an introductory special for anyone that comes in and takes the test from January 1st to February 28th. We're going to give you an introductory special, a discount, to come in and take the test. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, and I'll tell you why we're doing that. What I wanted to do is just kind of take a minute and go through a few concepts in the task list. Underneath the test specification, each general content area then identifies skills respective to that content area. And those are the skills that we technicians perform doing our job diagnosing and repairing hybrid vehicles in this case. These are the skills that our industry experts determine that we should know and understand if we're going to be certified doing this work for a living. One of the things you're going to notice is that throughout the 4 content areas that I outlined that cover the high voltage systems, you're going to see some repetitive tasks, okay? Basically, the first 5 tasks are the same. Performing the high voltage disconnect procedure, reconnect and enable the high voltage system. It's kind of a safety task, and it's important to each of those high voltage content areas, but we could ask you a question about that procedure as it relates to each of those different areas separately, you know, whether it be content area A, C, D, E, or F, okay? The same thing applies. I'll just use task 4 as another example. We're going to retrieve and diagnose diagnostic trouble codes as it relates to the battery system, okay? But if I scroll down for a moment and show you content area C, the drive system, okay, I've also got a task here that reads retrieve and diagnose DTCs. We're going to be retrieving and diagnosing drive system DTCs. You know, different system, you know, different maybe diagnostic direction and procedures. So we can ask you about diagnosing DTCs in several different ways. So the idea is what we coach is to use the task list and the certification test reference document really as a benchmark for assessing your knowledge of the test content. When you read through these job skills throughout this task list, throughout all the content areas, it's important to note that if you read something like Task 8, Diagnose Motor Rotor Position Sensor, Resolver or Encoder Type, if you read that and you say, I don't even know what a resolver or encoder is, guess what? You've just identified something that you probably need to brush up on, because we've identified a task. The SMEs and the industry have said this is an important job skill, and if you don't know anything about it and you don't do anything about knowing something about it, you've just conceded that you're going to get that question wrong if you see it on the test. So put your best foot forward. Be honest with yourself about what you know and don't know about the content areas and the skills within the content areas of the test, and use this as a benchmark for determining what you need to study. One of the other things I wanted to point out, power electronics. This is where we identify the questions where we're going to be talking about the procedures necessary to establish the operational power mode. Remember, and then we went ahead and gave you another refresher about the off, accessory, power on, and ready to drive, the ASE language that is available to you in the certification test reference document. Because again, that will be the language used in the test questions, and that's the language you need to know and understand when you're taking the test, so that you know what those modes mean, and you can make an effective diagnosis of the problem in the test question by understanding that mode as we've indicated it. Okay. Just moving along into the hybrid supporting systems. This is kind of the catch-all, and I wanted to point out a few things here because this test, like I said, encompasses the generic technology as it relates to hybrid electric vehicles. We are going to be talking about EVAP system emissions components and diagnosis. We're going to talk about electronic steering systems. Okay, we've got high voltage air conditioning compressors. Okay, so all important tasks for us to have an understanding about, because the potential for questions on these skills is going to be very good, and the more you know about them, the better success you're going to have on the test. More importantly, the better success you're going to have fixing cars in the shop when you're working on the hybrid vehicles. So that's basically, I'm not, like I said, wasn't going to go in and cover every task. This again is a resource for you to use to help you in your preparation for taking this test. So let's talk about the prerequisite requirements. What do we have to do to earn this test? Okay, well, as I mentioned, it's an advanced level test. Okay, so it requires 3 years of hands-on working experience, the experience requirement for ASE testing to earn this certification. Now, what we had to do is, during test development with the SMEs, we had to consider whether there should be a prerequisite requirement as we have with the other advanced level tests. And if so, what prerequisites would be appropriate? Now, in making this decision, ASE staff, we directed the SMEs to consider the other tests in the automobile technician series that include skills that are fundamental to the skills identified in the new L3 task list. Okay? And that's kind of what we did when we determined the prerequisite requirements for the L1 and L2. You know, what do you need to know first before you get to advanced level? You know, so in making this determination with this level of clarity, the overwhelming consensus of our groups was to require both the A6 automobile electrical electronic systems and the A8 automobile engine performance tests as prerequisites. You have to have previously passed both of these tests in order to register for the new L3 test. Your certifications, we've changed our experience requirement, our prerequisite requirement just a little bit, just to let you know. You don't have to have a current A6 and A8. They can be expired and you can still register to take the L3. But you have to have had a previous pass, okay? Important distinction to make, and you heard it first right here, because it's kind of a new rule with ASE. We've kind of relaxed on folks that have previously passed and maybe have let them lapse. We'd love for you to come back and re-up them, but we also don't want to block you from getting to the advanced level either. So if you got a previous pass, we're going to let you through the door. So let's talk about the launch. How are we going to kick this test off? This is where it gets a little bit tricky, and I want everybody to kind of understand, because this is, you know, reaching out to the group of you that are out here. You know, you're kind of a target audience, so okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to market just a little bit because we need your help, and it's not really marketing. We and the repair and service industry need your help. The test is first going to be offered the first time January 1st, 2015. Okay, you can actually purchase this test starting December 1st. We've got a new ripple in ASE certification that we're going to kick off in December. I can't really divulge anything, but the writing's on the wall. I'm telling you, you can start purchasing this test December 1st, and you can actually start scheduling your appointments for January 1st through February 28th as of December 1st. Now, the reason being, one of the things we want to do is we want people to buy early and schedule early, because this test is going to be 95 questions and it's going to be 3.5 hours of test time. Now, in consideration for your willingness to be the first test takers and to come in within this window of January 1st to February 28th, we've got an introductory special for you folks. We're going to give you a $50 discount on the test fee. Okay? That only applies January 1st to February 28th. We need you, though, to help us validate this new test. With any new ASE test, we don't have all of the statistical data that we need to validate the test and to give you an accurate result in your test. So as a result, there's not going to be instant results, and I'll talk about that more in just a minute. But we need you to come in. We need a mass of technicians to come in January 1st to February 28th to take this test, to help us give the results that we need to go through all the test and measurement things we do behind the scenes to generate a bar that is going to determine the pass-fail mark. Okay? One of the things I want to point out, again, I say this introductory special applies January 1st to February 28th. This test will be offered March, April, May, and June. It's still going to be 95 questions and 3.5 hours, but there's not going to be any discount applied. The test, the operational test of 55 questions in 2 hours, is going to kick off on or about July 1st. Okay? So again, we need test takers to come in though January 1st to February 28th. You're not going to, again, $50 introductory special. There's not going to be any instant results given. You're going to get a notice of completion, and then ASE is going to take all that validation, all those results, and we're going to conduct what we call a passing score study. We're going to determine the pass-fail, and then for everybody that took their test January 1st to February 28th, all those tests will be posted to my ASE by the end of May. Anybody that tests March 1st to June 30th, those results really won't make it into my ASE until the end of July. I know that's all kind of confusing, but the big thing is you can purchase this test. If you want to be an early adopter, you can purchase this test starting December 1st, and you can start scheduling your appointments for January 1st to February 28th. Because it's a 3.5-hour testing time, you know, schedule early so that we can make sure you get the appointment on the day and time that you want that's convenient for you. Let's talk about some preparation resources. How can we get you all ready to take this test now? Giving you some ideas about content, how we're going to launch it, but how are we going to get you prepared to take it? So the first place I'd like you to go is the ASE website, and I've just dragged it on over here to walk you through a couple of things. One of the best first resources that I'd like you to look at are what we call the FAQs, the frequently asked questions. We've got a document that outlines everything. It details everything you need to know about how we're going to kick off the L3 testing program. The way you get to that is you get to the ASE homepage at ase.com. You're going to follow me along. You're going to click on About ASE. You're going to go down here to Frequently Asked Questions, and you'll see right here in the listing, Light Duty Hybrid Electric Vehicle Specialist Test L3, and boom. Every question that you could possibly imagine. What is the L3 test? When is it going to first be offered? Everything that I just stated you about the first offering, the introductory special, how to get test preparation information, where that's available, where the test is going to be given. Anything and everything you need to know is there for you. So the second preparation resource that we have available for you is the official Light Duty Hybrid Electric Vehicle Specialist Study Guide, the L3 Study Guide. The way you get that from ASE, again from our homepage, from our website, you can click on right here, Test Prep and Training. Go to the Study Guides, click on Download the Study Guides, and then scroll through the list to find the Advanced Level L3 Light Duty Hybrid Electric Vehicle Test information. So when that loads up, here is the official ASE Study Guide in its entirety. So I want to just walk through this just to show you the subcomponents here. Front cover is telling you this is the test information for the L3 test. There's some overview, some information that just explains the prerequisite requirements, the number of questions on the test, you know, some of the constructs of the test program, a little bit of who writes the questions. We talked about our SMEs. How do I prepare for the test? Some test taking tips. We have a little explanation here explaining what the ASE Light Duty Hybrid Electric Vehicle Specialist Certification Test Reference is, what you should do before the test, how long the tests are. Again, just some general information, what you can do, what you need to do at the test center. So we also included the task list. Remember, we went through that, kind of went through in a little bit of detail. Again, this is just a recap of the task list, the test specification with the task list to follow. There's a couple of more pieces of this that I want to point out to you as we scroll through here, and I'm going to kind of scroll through slowly here, so I know some people's screens are refreshing, so want everybody to be able to see what I'm showing you. Again, so the task list, like I showed you before, you know, is recapped here. You know, all the general content areas and the associated tasks in those content areas that you can use to serve as your own benchmark for test preparation. Now, there's following the task list is the certification test reference document. And again, we've identified that page 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. So that's included in this study guide. Everything you need, is right here, the task list and the certification test reference. Again, this is, you don't need to bring one of these to the test center. There's going to be a button to click, and it's going to be a pop-up electronic document in the user interface. But this document's available to you in this form so that you can see it before the test, get familiar with it before the test, and then it is just a reference. It's a test reference for you when you come in and actually take the test. It's like what was that encoder term about? And you can pop open, look at the glossary of terms, and get a clue for what that term means and that question you're not sure about. So we also provided some sample questions. Yes, we gave you sample questions. This will give you a really good idea of the true flavor of an L3 test question. Okay, the first one, like we do with L1 and L2 in their study guides, we've given you a little bit of remediation. We've given you the setup of the question, and this could, the situation could be caused by with 4 answer options. And then we've given you what we call remediation. We tell you why answer A is wrong, why B is correct, and why C is wrong, and why D is wrong. It's the technical validation of each answer option and why there's no best answer. There is only one right answer, and there's sound technical reasons for that, and that's how you analyze any ASE test question. So we've given you a little bit of remediation of an explanation here to illustrate that, to help you analyze test questions. We have a webinar on that. It's recorded. If you haven't seen it, it's a great preparation resource, something else that you might want to put in your toolbox, your arsenal for test preparation, analyzing ASE test questions. It's a great webinar. And I'd encourage you to take a look at that if you're not comfortable, haven't taken one of our tests in a while. So there's like I said, there's a handful of sample questions. We've given you a couple that are type specific. As I told you, you're going to see a sprinkling of type specific questions. So we've got one here to illustrate how that's going to work with a type 1 hybrid vehicle. Won't enter ready to drive mode. So 2 elements. It's our own vehicle typing, and it's our own operational power mode, both in one question. So but that gives you an idea of what to expect, and that's what we wanted to do, is get everybody comfortable with how we're going to show these questions to you and how they're going to be presented to you, so you feel comfortable walking into the test center. The last but not least, we try to give you a well-resource of industry training opportunities. Okay, now these aren't any training programs specifically endorsed by ASE. These are friends of the industry that we want to just basically make a handshake to you folks. If you need some, if you're at a loss for where to get some good information to help brush up any of your skill sets, we've given you some options here to consider with contact information, so you can reach out to these folks and find out if what they have is what you need. And so it's up to you to make that determination. We've just provided you the information to hopefully make that connection and that handshake to these good training folks out here that are trying to do a good job teaching hybrid vehicle technology at all different levels, I might add, as well. So take a look through these, and again, no endorsement, but just a well-resource for you to take a look and see if there's something there that might help you in your study efforts. All right, so kind of in wrap up, so what should you do to get ready for testing? Well, I'm just going to kind of recap some of the things that I've been stressing here tonight. First and foremost, download the study guide, okay? Download the ASE study guide and use the task list as your benchmark, okay? Analyze yourself against those skills. Be honest with the person looking back at you in the mirror, and hey, what do I know or don't know about these tasks? Put a check mark next to the ones you're not sure of, and then the ones you're not sure of, focus in on those. That's kind of the weak links in your chain that you want to strengthen up, so that overall you're stronger all throughout your skill set. That's the best first place to start. Familiarize yourself with the certification test reference document. Again, that's kind of the precepts for the content in this test and the expectation of your knowledge of that content. So study that outline. It's going to be a shame if the first time you've ever seen that is sitting down at the computer station in the test center. That is not the first place to see this document. So, we made it available. Please, please, please study up on it. You'll see that it's a wealth of information and will really give you, a lot of the tools that you need to get your head wrapped around the content that you're going to experience when you take this test. Take a look at the training resources listed in the study guide. Contact those folks if you think that they have something that can help you. Hopefully, they do have something that can help you if you have the need. But last and not least, and I left this one really for last because this is kind of the exclamation point. In order to be successful on this test, in the generic constructs that I've explained to you tonight, you have to focus on the high voltage system diagnosis. That is really the essence of this test. It is you must have a solid knowledge of electronic system principles and of course high voltage systems and high voltage diagnostic procedures. If you're solid there, if you've got a lot of experience working on these, and you have a good experience working on various manufacturer platforms like we're identifying in our certification test reference document, you'll have the greatest level of success in achieving or earning this new L3 credential. And as promised, we're going to try to keep this to a half hour. I think I ran just a touch over, but a lot of good information, and I hope that everyone out there finds it beneficial and informative. We certainly, again, we hope that you'll take our call, answer our call, and again, come to the table and help us validate this new exam, January 1st to February 28th, by taking the pilot, if you will, the pilot version of this exam. We need you. We need your help. The industry needs your help in order to help us further this exam and get it operational going into the future and moving forward and continuing to develop it as hybrid technology grows out in the marketplace. So again, thank you for coming tonight, or I'm going to turn it over and see if my moderator, if there's any questions that we want to address at this point that have come through the channels. Dave?
John, this is Don jumping in here. Most of the questions and such we were able to respond to through the keyboard here, but maybe one thing that tends to keep popping up again, if you'd review the whole idea of when the discount is for the testing and when those results will be available if they're testing here in January, February, or throughout the rest of the spring.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and that's outlined in the FAQs on the ASE website. Matter of fact, you know what? If everybody wants to hang with me here for a minute, we have the technology, and I can go there. So okay, so the ASE will offer the L3 test beginning in January 2015. So anyone meeting the prerequisite requirements may register to take the first test. Now, when's it going to be so the introductory special is question FAQ number 4. Why is ASE offering an introductory special? We're offering an introductory special because we need a good sample of technicians to come in and take the test between January 1st, as I said, and February 28th. And we'll give you a $50 discount. Now, you can start to register for the new test beginning December 1st. You can purchase the test and you can start scheduling your appointment between January 1st and February 28th. During that time frame, you'll be given the discount, the introductory discount of $50. Again, as I mentioned, that test is going to contain 95 questions with a 3.5-hour time limit. But again, that's what we need. We need a greater number of questions to help to validate the results so that we can generate not only the first test, but subsequent tests out of the question pool and start to build the question pool. And so that's why we need your help to validate the test, and we're going to try to give you a little bit of a break to come in and take it. Anything else, Don?
Sorry, I was busy typing here. No, I think that was covering a lot of the questions we're getting here in repetition.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Again, all that information, for those of you that are still with us, all that information again is outlined in those FAQs that I showed you how to get to on our website. So again, the FAQs really, I think I did a pretty fair job line by line of explaining, all the aspects of this new certification program, all the way from what the test is to, how it's going to get launched. So the FAQs are going to, probably be a good resource for you to fill in any gaps or refresh your memory on things that I talked about here tonight. Anything else?
John, this is Don once again. We're still getting a few questions coming in here. What we'll do for those folks who we didn't get a chance to respond to, we'll take a look at this after we get closed up. We may follow up with some of you with